I'm here to argue that obesity can run in the family, but not the way you think. This came up for me because I had a message from someone saying that genes are what causes obesity, i.e., in terms of people having a predisposition to not feeling full enough, so therefore they eat too much and they have too many calories, and therefore they become obese. I'm here to call BS on that in terms of how, yes, I do believe obesity can run in the family in terms of behavior, not genes. There is elements of genes, but I think the majority of obesity is actually explained through behavior in terms of if it runs in the family, it's because one person or a few people in the family are leading by example, and the behavior is something that is learnt as opposed to being passed down from gene to gene. If we look at the technical, physiological way that you become obese, it isn't through having certain parents and blood types and genes as much as it is about your behavior. And your behavior is something that is learnt from a young age. We're not born with an obesity gene. There isn't any such thing as an obesity gene. What there is a learnt behavior over time. If your family that you grow up in is obese, if they're all obese, you have a higher chance of becoming obese yourself because of the learnt behaviors that you're going to have in terms of the environment that you grow up in, everything that goes on, the examples that are being set by other people in your environment, in terms of the way things just are, right? The way you do things, or the way that you eat and drink. And if we look at how obesity happens in terms of the maths behind it, what you're actually looking at is the fact that there are just too many calories being consumed, whether not dependent upon who is your mom and dad, as opposed to looking at it mathematically. It happens when you take on too many calories in relation to how many calories your body actually needs. So I'm here to give my opinion in terms of what I think causes obesity, which is the maths behind it. So it's not a case of people who are becoming obese aren't eating the right foods. It's not a case of not eating enough healthy food. It's actually because they're just eating too much food. They're getting in too many calories because our bodies have a system that comes from our millions and millions of years of evolution in terms of harboring and safeguarding those extra calories that we take in for a rainy day. It holds on to those extra calories, converts them into fat, sticks them on the body somewhere in case we need those extra calories some rainy day. Whereas what actually happens is that we don't need those calories. However, they stick around, they don't get flushed out, they stick to the body and they build up over time. Over time, in terms of the accumulation of all those extra calories that we get through these snacks, through the extra meals, through the sugary drinks, through things that, anything that you eat is going to have some kind of calorie content to it, and you can quite easily reduce your calorie content without necessarily switching to a healthier diet, right? For one, I don't like using the word diet because everyone misunderstands and misuses it for something that is short term, which is not the way to go. What you want is a way of eating that means that you're getting enough calories in, as opposed to a behavior that means that you're getting too many calories in, and therefore those calories are being added to the body somewhere, right? So it's about behavior. It's actually about the mindset behind it and what you believe in terms of your world, in terms of how you think about food, what your relationship to food is. But ultimately, if you bring it back to the bare maths, the physiological reason for obesity, for becoming overweight, is because we're consuming too many calories, or we're getting in too many calories than we're burning off. So it's not about trying to burn off all of those calories. It's not about punishing yourself for that pizza that you've had or whatever. It's actually about thinking about not having too much pizza. It's about reducing your overall calorie intake, as opposed to totally drastically changing your diet in a way that you're not going to want to do in a week, a month, or a year's time. So obesity can run in the family, but not via genes, not via the genetic pool, not by hereditary methods. But I'm a big believer that genes are not the reason for obesity, but it's actually a learnt behavior that can cause obesity. So we have to tackle the way someone thinks about food, the way they relate to food, the way they talk about food, their environment, which impacts their mindset around food. So I think that is my opinion in terms of how obesity can run in the family through behavior.